What's up you guys, Charles here and welcome back to the channel. Now in today's video I'm going to address the rather important question of how much do you need to save up by age before you retire. Now before we get anywhere with how much you need for each age, I just want to set out the ground rules normally for how much you need to have saved up for you to retire. Now the general rule of thumb is you need to have between 25 and 30 times whatever you spend in a given year saved up. You need to have that saved up and invested in a diversified portfolio, of course, where you get on average a 7 to 8% return. And the reason this is how much you need to have saved up for your retirement is actually because of a rule called the 4% rule, where essentially every year when you retire you take 4% out of your portfolio, but you see your portfolio is still slightly growing because you have a 7 to 8% return and you're just taking out 4% each year. So it's stagnating / slightly increasing every year, which means that theoretically you're never going to run out of money. And obviously if you're taking 4% out of your portfolio, well, you have to times 4% by 25 to get 100%, right? So that's why there's this rule of thumb that you should have 25 times your annual spending so that that 4% is your annual spending. But people say to go up to 30 to 33% just to be on the safe side of things. And you're probably sitting there saying, well, Charles, 25 to 33 times what I'm spending during the year, that's a huge amount. Like that, I'm never going to make that. I'm never going to be able to retire. But don't worry, if you started early, then you can take advantage of something called compound interest. If you're new to the channel, then you probably won't know about this, or unless you've heard it somewhere else, but essentially you save consistently, invest at a 7 to 8% return in the stock market, for example, although you can invest in other things, down to you really. But I advise the stock market because you can do it fairly passively. It doesn't take a lot of active management of your portfolio if you use the 3-fund portfolio, and it increases with a 7 to 8% return, sometimes more depending on the economic environment, of course. And although you only get 8% at the start, and it starts very slow, it then ends up growing exponentially over time. So this means that the earlier you invest and the more you invest earlier, the quicker your portfolio is going to go exponential and spike up. And this is why I advise when you're young to try save and invest as much as you can and get as much money as you can to save and invest it, because just saving and investing in your 20s, for example, saving a certain amount in your 20s and having invested outperforms, for example, someone that starts investing in their 30s for the rest of their life. And so you just got to make that conscious decision of thinking about the long term. Now, as a general rule of thumb of how much you should save, I would say try shoot for 20%. Now, at the start, you're probably not going to be able to get there, but the way to get there is you need to start budgeting, right? So you need to track your expenses and see, right, is this something stupid? Do I need this? Can I start cutting down on this? Other places like your utilities, for example, you say, right, is there a better deal out there? And then there is, or you negotiate with your supplier for your utilities, for example, that can cut down £100 a month or something. And then this £100 you're saving, you then go and invest that into your portfolio, and that's £100 a month, 1.2k a year. And although it might not seem like a huge amount on the small term, that can turn into a huge amount long term. Now, even if it's just starting in saving and investing 1%, if that gets you towards that 20%, then go shoot for that. But 20% is the general rule of thumb for trying to retire as early as you can with a decent or good lifestyle. But if you really want to retire as early as you can, as quickly as you can, I would aim more for 50 to 60% investing. But these are extreme people that do this, and they are part of something called the FIRE community, which stands for Financially Independent Retire Early, where essentially they're saving and investing as much as they can into a portfolio, taking advantage of that compounding, and it means that they then have the income, sort of like a base income, to do whatever they want, right? It covers their expenses. And so to save up all this money, they live well below their means, often early on in life. And it means that then for the rest of their life, they can do whatever they enjoy because they've got that income from their portfolio that they've saved up that is growing exponentially and is still growing exponentially, but they're still just taking pieces out of their portfolio through the 4% rule. And this just allows them to then do whatever they want later in life, right? They're sacrificing 10 to 15 years to then have like 40 years of doing whatever they want, which, to be honest, I sort of agree with, but I also think, you can't sacrifice everything you have in your life currently because, right, you don't know whether you're going to be here tomorrow or whatever. So I'd say that you should definitely think long term. If you don't think long term, then you need to start doing it. It's sort of stupid living paycheck to paycheck. And the earlier you realize that, and the earlier you realize that spending all your money on Gucci and useless stuff, you'll never remember the day you die, right? The Gucci slides or whatever you bought, and the fact that they actually never bring you any sort of long-term happiness while spending on more fulfilling stuff, like even just giving to a homeless person in the street, or giving to people in Yemen or any cause that is close to your heart, that firstly is proven to give you long-term happiness and stuff you remember. But also, of course, experiences, whether that's just going down to the pub, right? In the UK, we go down to the pub a lot. And that's just an experience you're going to remember for a while. And even if you're spending money there, at least you're spending on the experience that you'll always remember. Then don't do that too often, because then it doesn't make this experience enjoyable, of course, and special. So I went off on a bit of a rant there, but I think it's definitely very important that you should be shooting for 30 times of whatever your annual spendings are. So that's how much you should have saved up, and to do so you should be aiming to save as much as you can, but definitely shoot for at least 20%, and make sure that that 20% goes directly into a savings account, so either an ISA or pension where there's tax relief on it, or it's tax advantageous because you don't get taxed from the capital gains and stuff like that. And you then invest it in a portfolio in the stock market where it's diversified in risk, and so there isn't too much of a downside, but you're also taking risks so that you have a decent return on your money. So in your 20s, this is the sort of time where you want to be saving and investing as much as you can, living like that broke student, because you have no sort of societal pressures on you to be living like a lavish lifestyle, if you will. This is when you should be saving and investing as much as you can, but also, living your life. But I'd say save 20% from this age, and the aim is by the age of 30, you should have at least one time your annual salary saved up and invested. Now, of course, the way to do this, as I've said, is invest it in the right place, diversified portfolio, saving what you got, using employer matches. So for example, your employer might match whatever your pension contributions are up to a certain amount. So make sure you match that, because then you're doubling your money essentially, because your employer is matching whatever you're putting in. But also having a little side business or doing something on the side, right, that can make you more money. Because it's about not only reducing your expenses, but also increasing your income. Now, according to Forbes, by your 40s, you should have around 3 to 4 times, depending on which website you look at, saved up and invested of your annual salary. So of course this can vary, and the more you have saved up, the better. Don't just aim for that, aim higher if you can, if you want. These are all lifestyle choices, of course, and completely down to you, but you might want to think about it, because the more you have saved up, the earlier you'll be able to retire. And you might not even want to retire. You might want to just have enough money coming in to cover all your expenses, like this fire community, and then doing something else that then supplements your income, but is a lot more fulfilling than working a white collar job. That honestly, according to Elon Musk, the AI is going to wipe out all those jobs anyway. So you might as well go for a more creative and nicer job later on in life, just by saving and investing more now. Now, the other thing in your 20s is you should be shooting for 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. So this is 3 to 6 months of your expenses in case you lose your job, a medical emergency occurs if you're in America. In the UK, we're slightly more protected because of your tax contributions. But just in any case, if you lose your job, you want to have that safety net. In your early 20s, it might be less. It might be 1 to 2 months worth, because you can afford to take more risk. And that's, as I said, you really want to be saving and investing more the earlier you can. Now, although this might not currently be relevant to you in your 50s, right? Because the demographic on this channel is more like under 30s and some under 40s, actually, to be fair. But in your 50s, Forbes and other websites seem to have a general consensus that you should have 6 to 7 times your annual salary saved up. And last but not least, for your 60s, this is when you'll want 8 to 10 times your annual salary saved up. So there you have it. This is all the amount you should have saved up of your salary over your lifetime according to your age. But of course, you want to save up as much as you can, as early as you can, and invest it as early as you can. And you should aim for that 25 to 33x rule of how much you're spending per year, and make that how much you need to have saved up and invested. And the way to do that, as I've said, is to save up 20%, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and increase that 20% towards as much as you can, as fast as you can, as early as you can. And of course, the main way to do that is to increase your salary. Easier said than done, of course, but that's what you should be aiming for. And cutting your expenses. Now listen, thanks for watching up to here. If you've gained any value from this video, I would really appreciate it if you did smash that like button. It really helps me and the channel reach more people. And the aim of the channel is to help more people and impact more people. And also, I try to answer all the comments that I can. So if you've got any questions or want me to cover anything in the future, or any remarks, of course. And don't forget to subscribe if you're under 30 and want to know more stuff about how to manage, invest, and save your money. That's all that this channel is about. And I'm also looking forward to doing some travel videos close in the future, so those might interest you too. So make sure to hit that bell button too, so you know when they come out. Thank you so much for your time, and see you next time.